Good evening, everybody.
Kavod Harav, how are you?
Baruch Hashem, thank you. Yeah, so we're going to start with the bed today. We did Aleph yesterday. Okay, so let's get started here. So there's a tour here. It brings the Tshuva of the Rosh. Let's see inside. So it says like this. Katav Adoni Avi Rosh Sal b'Tshuva. He writes in Tshuva the Rosh, Lo itiru liknot b'Yom Tov ela kederech shemfaresh b'Gemara. So he says, don't only allow you to buy on Yom Tov the way they explain in the Gemara how to do that. Olech Adam etzel chenmani. So as we said, right, you go to the right store owner, right, the merchant, whatever, right. אבל ישראל שאומר לגוי מערב יום טוב שתקנה לי יונים למחר, right? But he says, what about if a Jew goes right before Yom Tov and he tells the goy like this, right? Buy me some pigeons tomorrow. Lo yafe asa, right? It's not proper to do like that, he says. אבל אם עשה כבר מותר לאכול מהם. But he says if he did it, he's allowed to use them, to eat them, אפילו בו ביום, even the same day. ובלבד שלא יהיו מפריחים ולא יהיו אסורים משום מוקצה. So he says, but it has to be that they're not flying, and they're not forbidden because of muktzah. אבל אם רגיל בכך, but he says if he's accustomed to do things like this, אסור לאכול מהם, he's not allowed to eat them anymore. אפילו קנה כבר, even if he already purchased it. Then זה חשוב דיעבד, because that's not considered to be בדיעבד, דכיוון שרגיל בכך. Why? Because he's accustomed to do so. All right, interesting tshuva of the Rosh there. So let's analyze it now in the Beit Yosef, right? Let's see what it says there. So it says here, Beit Yosef, first he gives you the place, right, where this tshuva is, Klal Chav Gimel, right over there, Siman Vav, this chapter. V'zeh lashono, that's what it says. He's right in the Rosh. Israel she'amar legoy. So a Jew tells a goy, Me'erev Yom Tov, right, from Erev Yom Tov, before Yom Tov, Kaneh li yonim, right, buy me some pigeons, right, some birds, poultry, whatever, right? Lemachar, for tomorrow, letzorech Yom Tov, for the sake of Yom Tov. Da ki lo yafeh asa liknot lo b'maot Yom Tov. So he says it's not proper what he did to buy him with money on Yom Tov. Ki asur liknot b'Yom Tov afilu belo ma'ot. So he says, because you're not really allowed to buy on Yom Tov even without money, ela bekia gavna, only in a way, the Amin on the Pek and Sadin, right? That we said the Gemara, as we said, right? Come to the Mudbel. Holech etzel ro'eh aragil etzlo ve'omer lo ten li gedi. So he goes to the shepherd, right? He wants an animal. So he tells him, give me a goat. Echad, one goat. V'vat shelo yazkir lo schum mekach, right? But as we said, that has all kinds of conditions, right? You're not allowed to mention the price. Right? Therefore, he says, so he says, therefore, he told the goy to do so, not proper what he did. It says the Rosh, right? If you already did it, b'diavad mutar, it's allowed b'diavad. To eat from there, even the same day. So he says, but only if these pigeons don't fly around. Below you asurim mishum muktzeh, and they're not forbidden because of muktzeh. Kedamin on pek bechol me'aruin. Like it says over there in Gemara, Eruvin mem amud gabi ahu lifta de ata lemachoza chazin hu rava de kemishe. So we're talking about a case there where this merchandise was brought to this town, and so Rava saw that there were kemishe, right? Amar hanet vaday metmol akrinhu. And he says, for sure, this was uprooted yesterday. My amrat michutz titchum atu. So what are you going to tell me? They came from outside the boundary? Haba bishvil Yisrael zeh mutar leYisrael acher. So that's allowed if it was bought for one Jew, for another Jew to use that. Okay. V'chol sheken na'achad de'adata degoim atu. Says all the more so here. He says that he bought it, for the goyim. B'kenya zo belo damim. So he says obviously, right, this purchase, right, that takes place without any payment. Ki ahid v'sopek en tzadin, like it says over there in Gemara. V'af agav the nilketu l'shem goyim. Says even though it was picked for goyim, im nilketu hayom, right? If it was picked today, hayu asurim mishum mukse. It says they're still forbidden because of mukse. Hilkach im hayonim gedolim. So it says therefore, if the pigeons are large, shecholim lifroach chutz mitfum, that means they can fly out of the boundary. Right? Asurim, he says they're forbidden mishum mukse because of mukse. The im lav, so not so. He says mutarim b'diavad. They're allowed b'diavad. Hecha shekina'am, when he bought them. But it says if they're accustomed to do so, asur lechol mehem, you're not allowed to eat them. Afilu kanu kvar, even if they already bought it, then zenikra diavad. That's not called b'diavad. Ela lechatchila, it's called lechatchila. Kivan sheregilim bechach, since they're accustomed to do so. Okay, this is the tshuva of the Rosh. So we'll see the Shulchan Aruch, right? See how what he makes out of this. Interesting. So it says like this in Shulchan Aruch. Yisrael she'amar le'eno Yehudi miba'od yom, right? If the Jew tells the goy, right, before Yom Tov, tikne li yonim lemachar, I want you to, right, buy me some pigeons tomorrow. Lo yafeh oseh, he's not doing properly. Aval im asa kvar mutar le'echol mehem b'Yom Tov. But he says if he already did so, he's allowed to eat them on Yom Tov. That's only if they cannot fly. But he says if they're right accustomed to do so, this Jew, It's forbidden because it's not called b'diavad. It's called lechatchila. You're doing this all the time. Kivan sheragil bechaf, right? Since you're accustomed to do so. So I would like to look at the Mishnah Berurah here to see, right, how he explains this. Let's see. All right, so interesting, right? So this is what he says here. The Mishnah Berurah, right? What is the problem here? What is the reason of the prohibition? So he says, "Afilu hachi asur, kivan she'akum posek schum ha'ma'ot b'yom tov, ve'atam dechol ma she'asur la'asot al yedei Yisrael, be'atzmo asur lomar la'akum la'asoto." Right? So he says the problem is like this. Okay, when the goy goes to the store to buy the merchandise, whatever, he does it in a normal way, right? Which means that they talk about the price, and he whatever, right? It's like a normal purchase. So he says, what's the problem with that? The problem is that whatever you're not allowed to do yourself, right? You're not allowed to tell a goy to do. ביום טוב, אפילו אם מצווהו מערב יום טוב על זה. Even if he tells him on Erev Yom Tov, right? That's what the Mishnah Berurah says. Okay, so now, right, we have to, that's a good explanation. So let's just talk about this a little bit and get into the details here. Right, so the truth is that it's a little bit surprising, right? What the Rosh is saying here. So I'll explain to you why. What we're saying here in the name of the Rosh in the Shulchan Aruch here. Because the truth is, right, that the rule is, even on Shabbat, you're allowed to tell the goy to do something which is a prohibition from the rabbis. So all these prohibitions here are from the rabbis. Setting a price for the food, or making even a payment for all these things. So then, why can't you tell the goy to do it? What's the reason why? So let's explain that a little bit, right, to understand. So the general rule is like this, okay? When it comes to telling a goy to do something on Shabbat or Yom Tov, the rule is if that prohibition, right, that labor that he's doing is from the Torah, you're not allowed to tell him to do that for you, right? If the prohibition is from the rabbis, so then, right, that's what we're talking about over here. So comes the Rosh and tells you, you know what, don't make this into like a lifestyle, a habit. You know what I mean? Like you do this all the time. That's already not good. So I'll explain to you why that is. The truth is, that it's brought down in the poskim like this, that as we said, right, you're allowed to tell a goy to do something which is from the rabbis, forbidden. But right, on Shabbat and Yom Tov, yes, true. But right, there's one important detail you have to understand. It's only allowed to do that. First of all, right, the Rosh says here, b'diavad. In other words, if you already did it, okay, you can use it. Right? That's one thing. But there's also something else which is called, like tzorech mitzvah. Let's say, right, it's for a mitzvah matter. So if it's for a mitzvah matter, that you're using that item, right? So then you're allowed to tell the goy to do it. That's one thing. Also, we say tzorech gadol, right? What does that mean? It's a big need, you have. Right? So there also you're allowed to tell the goy to do it. Because it's a big need. Right? So there's another thing which is called, right, Hefset merubeh, right? What does that mean? That you're going to lose, is going to cause you financial loss if you don't do it. So those three things, right, the rabbis allowed for you to tell the goy to do something that is rabbinical. But otherwise, right, if you don't really have a big need, or it's not a mitzvah matter, right, or it's not something which will cause you a loss, so there the rabbis didn't allow that on Shabbat and Yom Tov. That's the thing, and that's why the Rosh is telling you here, don't make this into like a minhag, every week the same thing, tell the goy, yeah, bring me my stuff, and buy it on Yom Tov, go to Trader Joe's, on Yom Tov, and buy me the stuff. What, every week you're gonna do that? What is it? You're making it into some kind of a minhag. That's already going to that's not the way the rabbi set it up. You know what I mean? So we don't want that. That's the whole thing, right? So therefore the Rosh is warning you, keep this in line. Don't go too far. Don't make it into a habit. And also, right, don't do this for no reason, just make it into some kind of a lifestyle, to do these kinds of things. It's not what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Every week, same thing, He goes to Trader Joe's and he brings you your produce on Yom Tov. What is this? That's not the way it's supposed to be. So that's what we're saying over here, right? But as we said, right, if there's a need for the mitzvah, or there's a big need, right, or as we said, right, these kinds of things. So on a one-time basis, you can tell the goy to do something that you need, which is rabbinical. So that's why I wanted to, make sure we got this straight, right? This whole idea, so it all fits into one nice package. I hope you guys understand me what I'm saying, because this is very important stuff, you got to understand this stuff. Okay, very good. So, right, we'll continue. We'll go to Gimel. If you have any questions, let me know. So, by the way, there's a certain irony here, right? This is kind of ironic here. Why is this kind of ironic? Because we just learned yesterday, right, that you can go and make the purchase yourself, as long as you follow the rules of the Gemara, right? That laid out, right? Don't mention a price, don't mention any measures, right? All these kinds of things, right? Stay within the boundaries. So then we tell you, fine, go and do it, Right? In other words, so in this case, turns out, right, very, very ironic, that sort of like it's better to do it yourself than to tell the goy. Which is really, a little bit surprising, right? So why is that? Because the goy does it in a forbidden manner, and you're doing it in a permitted manner. So it's better you should do it. That's what it comes out over here, right? Which is a little bit strange, but that's what it comes out. Very interesting. Okay, so let's go to Gimel. Okay, so then it goes on to Gimel, right? We'll see in the tour first. So it says in the tour, מותר לומר לחברו, מלא לי כלי זה, אפילו הוא מיוחד למידה, ובלבד שלא יזכיר בו שום מידה, right? This is also very important halakha. Very practical for us as well. So it says the tour over here like this, right? You can go, right, to your friend, and let's say you want to borrow some flour, right, from him, whatever, or you want to borrow some sugar, right, whatever, right, whatever it is. So you go right to his house and tell him, do me a favor, like fill up this cup, with sugar. Right? So he says the Torah, right? You're allowed to do that, even though, right? This cup is like sort of it's a measuring cup, but basically that's what it is, right? So, right, that we're not allowed to measure on Yom Tov and Shabbat, right? We're not allowed to measure things. There are certain things, by the way, you're allowed to measure, but in general, right, we don't measure. This is like a general rule. Again, right, the same thing. For mitzvah matters, we're allowed to measure on Yom Tov and Shabbat. Mitzvah matters. So here, right, you're borrowing a cup of sugar, whatever it is, right? So you can tell them, yeah, fill up that cup, even though it's a measuring cup, right? It's okay. Why is that? Because, you're just telling them to fill it up, right? You're not telling them to measure it. And you're not mentioning any size, like you're not saying, okay, well, give me right the pound, right, or whatever, right? Give me 1 liter, right? Something like that, right? You can't say that. But to tell them just fill up this cup, even though that cup may be like a liter, that's okay, It's a measuring cup. But he says the Rambam forbids, right, to use a cup which is a measuring cup. He doesn't allow that. So we got 2 opinions over here, right? According to first opinion, it's allowed to even use a measuring cup. According to Rambam, apparently it's not allowed. So he says the Rosh doesn't agree with that. So the Rosh seems to go like the first opinion, that it's allowed, and the Rambam seems to be stringent, right? Okay, very good. So let's see the Beit Yosef. We'll see what the halacha is, right? Over here. So says the Beit Yosef, Perek and Sadin, right? What is the source for this in this Gemara, right? Which is in Betzah. It says we already taught in the laws of Shabbat, right? Whenever it needs to be taught here. So he doesn't go into all the details here, right? He says look in the laws of Shabbat, but we're going to look in the Shulchan Aruch, right, and see what it says, right? Bottom line. Right, so it says the Shulchan Aruch like this. לומר לחברו, מלא לי כלי זה יין, דינו ביום טוב כמו שבת. So he says, the same rule applies to Yom Tov as it does to Shabbat, when it comes to, filling up a cup, right? כדאית בסימן 61 ג' והוא הדין דאסור להטיל גורלות ביום טוב. Right, so he says, right, that, where does this, so he doesn't even bother here to mention, right, whether we paskin like the Rambam or the Rosh. Interesting. He could have just said like one word, it's allowed, not allowed. All right, whatever. So he's referring us to over there. So I guess we should look at it, and see what it says there. Right. Let's take a right. Let's divert. Make a diversion over here, right? Over to the laws of Shabbat, and we'll see what it says there. Shin Chav Gimel. Right. Let's take a look there. I'll bring up the screen for you so you can see it, right? If you want to polish up your Hebrew, I'll make sure you see everything. Okay, so here we go. Here we go. Okay. So we're gonna go to that other page now. Don't be alarmed. There's no reason to be alarmed. We're just flipping over to a different program here. Oh, let's try that again. Are we in? Do you see the page?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. So here we go, right? Right, so says here the Shulchan Aruch, laws of Shabbat, right? This is 323. מותר לומר לחברו, מלא לי כלי זה, אפילו הוא מיוחד למידה, והנה מילה כשנוטל הלוקח מידה של מוכר ומוליכה לביתו. ולא צריך לומר, אם מביא הלוקח מתוך ביתו, ואומר לו, מלא כלי זה, אבל למדוד בכלי המיוחד למידה, לשפוך לתוך כליו, של לוקח אסור. Okay, so he brings here a little bit of a condition, right? A little bit of a twist over here in the plot. So first of all, he says you're allowed to, right, to fill up the measuring cup, as we said, right? Just tell him, fill it up, right? Fill it up, and so he says, but that only applies when he says that the buyer, right, the one who's buying it, he's taking the cup of the seller and bringing it to his house. Interesting. He says, I don't need to tell you if, right, the buyer brings it to his house and tells him, right, fill up this right, the utensil. Okay. Right, so he says that's also fine. That, in other words, the buyer is bringing his own measuring cup, right, and bringing it to the seller, right? And he's telling him, okay, fill it up, please, fill it up with premium, right? So, okay. That's also good. That's even better, in other words. So then what is forbidden? So it says, אבל למדוד בכלי המיוחד למידה ולשפוך לתוך כליו שלוקח אסור. So what's forbidden? So he says, this is we cannot do. Right? To bring a measuring cup, right? And then to take it from there and to put it into the utensil of the buyer. In other words, you're using the measuring cup, let's say of the seller, right? And from there, you're putting it into the utensil of the buyer. So there, it's not allowed. So I can see why that is, right? Because probably the point is, right, that if you're not really using that measuring cup, to take it home, so basically, right, what you use it for is to measure with it. So therefore, it looks more suspicious, that you measured. So therefore, in a case like that, we don't allow. So then it brings the Rama another opinion, right? Here. So it says, ויש מכירין, לומר, דכל שאינו מכוון למידה גם שמת או מוסיף מעט שרת. So he says, right, the Rama, he brings another, right, reason why it would be allowed. Right? That what? So he says, let's say you don't you're not so particular to fill it up exactly to the top, the brim, right? This measuring cup. A little bit more, a little bit less, right? It's an over measure or under measure. So he said, that's okay. Why? Because you can see that the guy's not really measuring here, right? So he says, therefore, in a case like that, it's allowed. So he's a little bit more lenient here, the Rama. Okay. So basically, right, what we're saying is that we got two opinions, right? The Shulchan Aruch says you can do it, but don't take it from the measuring cup and then put it into another utensil. That we don't want. Rama says that's even allowed, right? As long as you don't measure exactly, a little bit more, a little bit less, right? You're not so particular, so it's allowed. Okay, there you go. So that's the same thing applies to Yom Tov, right? That's basically what we're saying. Same idea. So basically, what do you see from there, right? That if the buyer, right, brings his own measuring cup, right, for argument's sake, right, and he just fills it up and goes home, no problem with that. According to everybody, it's allowed, right? That's pretty much whether it's the Ramah or the Shulchan Aruch, it's the same. Okay, good. So let's go back to our dominion, right? We'll go back there to our boundaries. As we said, right? We can't leave the boundaries of Shabbat, right? Of Yom Tov, right? So we got to go back. Okay. So we'll go back to the other program. Here we go. Okay. There you go. Okay. So that's nice. Okay. So I guess we got time for one more, maybe even more. Maybe. Can't promise you. No promises. No guarantees. Okay. Oh, before we go on, uh, let's just look at the Ramah here. He's saying anything interesting? Let's go back there 1 second. Right, so he adds one more thing over here, the Ramah, which is that um, you're not allowed to draw lots on Shabbat, Yom Tov, right? Like just like Shabbat, he says. Same thing. Why would you want to draw lots? By the way, what's the purpose of that, right? You're doing a lottery on Shabbat. Obviously, that's not the case, right? We're not talking about that. So, if I remember correctly, what he means to say is that you shouldn't draw lots to see who's going to get which portion of the food, things like this, If I remember correctly, that's what it's talking about there. I'm not going to get into it now. Okay. If you want, we can take a look at it. Let's go back there for a second. Let's take a look at it. Why not? If we're already there, why not avail ourselves, right, of this? Give ourselves the liberty to check that too. Okay. So it says here, let's go back there. Yeah, that's exactly what it's talking about. Like I told you.
We talking about drawing lots on Shabbat or on Yom Tov?
Right, both. It's all the same, right? That's what we're trying to say. It's all the same, right?
Because on Shabbat, could it be something for like for an Aliyah?
No, here we're talking about, as we said, right? We're talking about who's gonna get, the best portion, right? Yeah, something like that, right? Dark meat, white meat, right? Well done, right? Medium rare. Who's gonna get things like this, Okay. And so, in other words, in general, this is forbidden, But here the Shulchan Aruch says, right, that sometimes it's allowed, depending on how you do it, depending on who you do it with. I mean, it's all discussion. We're not going to get into it now. Let's go back. By the way, the reason I'm not going to get into it is because nobody does this today, So it's like it's not really something very practical. When was the last time you drew lots on Shabbat to see who's going to get which portion, right? I don't think you've done this very often.
Yeah, well, rock, paper, scissors.
I'm sorry.
Well, rock, paper, scissors over it.
Oh, what was that again?
It's a game called rock, paper, scissors where you.
Oh, I don't know. You got me there. I don't know what that is.
Never mind.
We're gonna have to learn about that one. Delve into that a little bit. Okay, because I don't know what that is. Okay, so all right. So let's go back to our boundaries, as we said, right? The boundaries of Yom Tov. Let's see what we can scrounge up here. So yeah, this is a short one. I think we should be able to do this, no problem. Let's take a look first at the two Bet Yosef. Okay, so yeah, here's the Bet Yosef. Lo imdod. Okay, let's look at the tour first. So it says the tour here. It seems like we're almost done with the chapter here. Lo imdod adam seorim veitem lifnei behemto. Right. So it tells you, right, don't measure barley to give it to feed your animal. Aval koder hu kav or kavaim benoten lefanea. Right. But what you can do is like scoop out some, some and give it to the animal, right? Something like that. Rashi explains, what does that mean? Koder nokev nekev b'kri atzmo memale melo shelo kederech midah. Berif, right? So Rashi says, right, what that means is that you make like a hole in the pile of the barley and you fill it up. So why do we do it that way? So he says because it's like not the normal way. It's a shinui, it's the same thing, right? It's an abnormal way. So that we allow you to do, right? Abnormal. So that's the Rashi. Ve'arif, but the Rif says a little bit differently, right? Perush koder meshaer lefi omed dato, right? So the Rif says, right, what that means is that you're not measuring precisely, right? It's only estimation, right? So the Rif says, right, something which we already saw, right? I think in the Shulchan Aruch that we just looked at, right? That estimation, the Ramah talked about this, right? Estimation is allowed, right? Only precise measuring is not allowed. So that's what the Rif says, right? That's allowed to do. Okay, good, right? So I already mentioned to you guys, right, that you're allowed to do measuring, which is mitzvah on Yom Tov and Shabbat, right? But here, right, what mitzvah is there to measure, the food you give to the animal, right? What, if you don't measure it, he won't eat it, right? Well, what does it really matter, right? There's no mitzvah over here to measure. You know what I mean? Just give it to him, he'll eat it, don't worry. His stomach will tell him to measure, When he's full, he'll stop eating. So you don't need to measure it, right? There's no reason for that. So what would be an example that we, we're allowed to measure for mitzvah? Can you guys think of an example? If you've been to my house, you know, right? You should know that. So, right,
Wine?
I'm sorry?
Like the wine?
Yeah, not really the wine. I'm talking about the right, the matzot and the maror, right? Things like this, So there are some, cool guys, like I'm not that cool, I'm not that cool. But there are some cool guys on Passover, right? The Seder night. What they do is, before they give people their portion of the matzah, they weigh it, Oh my God, So make sure you get the right weight. Right. What I do is I do like estimation, which works very fine, by the way. I don't need to weigh nothing. I think it's really unnecessary, but they say, that it's a mitzvah to weigh it, I mean, to know, make sure, right? That whatever.
Isn't there a machloket as to what an actual, what this portion size is supposed to be anyway?
Wow, now you're getting me to a whole big thing there. Okay, we're getting to a whole discussion now. Okay, well, okay, that's
What's an
good.
actual egg
I'm
size?
happy. I'm happy you're getting me into it. I have no problems with that. I just wasn't expecting to go this way, this direction. But
Well, no, I'm
anyway,
just saying it should be okay to estimate if the rabbis can't really agree on how much is the minimum anyway. You just
by the way,
kinda-
somebody just asked me about this, so I'll tell you guys what what the question was and what the answer was. Some person asked me, right? My chavuta, the guy that I learn with, right? He asked me like this, couple of questions he asked me. Number one is, right, let's say you ate some bread, okay? But you're not sure if you had a kazait. So he says, if that's the case, right, do I have to bench? Do I have to say Birkat Hamazon or not, right? That was the question, right? You hear this question? So what I told him was, right, I said, if you guys know me very well, right, whoever knows me well knows that I don't like to text too much, you know what I mean? Like, in other words, if it's a short question, I'll answer you on text. But if it's a long one, I tell you, please call me, because I don't have the strength to write too much on text, I'm not one of those fast writers. So I prefer to talk it out, on the phone, the old-fashioned way. So some people get, like for surprise, like, what? You don't want to text with me? Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't want to text. I can't write that fast, What do you want me to do now? To write a whole essay for you? Like why are you wasting my time? With texting, let's talk on the phone. Let's talk tachlis, what I mean? What do I need texting for? I mean, if you want all the details, you want the lowdown, right? So to call me up, what doesn't cost you anything. What's the big problem, So okay, so anyway, right? So what I answered, I told him, I said, please call me, because I don't want to text all this stuff, too much. So he calls me up. So what I told him was like this. I tell him, listen, what are you? I told him, I said, are you from the family of birds? Are you a human being? Which one are you? So because I told him, I said, if you ate less than a kazait, I'm assuming that you're a bird. Like what? Only birds eat that much. I didn't mean to be sarcastic, but I was trying to make a point. You know what I mean? Like, how could it be that you ate less than a kazait? You know what I mean? Like, what is it? How much did you eat? So here's the thing, right? We got into a discussion about this. What I was trying to explain to him is that really, right, when the rabbis made a decree, regarding this measures, they didn't decree according to weight, they decreed according to volume. You know what I mean? It's not a matter of how many grams there are or how many pounds, right, whatever it is, right? Or right, whatever, some ounces, right, whatever. That's not the issue, right? It's not weight, it's volume. The rabbis decreed with volume, right? Kazait, what does it mean? Like an olive size, right? Kazait means olive. Kabetza means like an egg.
But isn't there a machloket as to what the size of an egg is today versus what there was during the time of the rabbis?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to that. I'm just warming it up now. You're getting the preamble over here.
Okay, thank you.
The preamble to the Constitution. You know what I mean, right? So now I tell this kid, right? I tell him, listen, you gotta, you have to know, right? It's volume. So do you know what a kazite is according to volume? It's like, half an egg, right? Or even 1/3. Machloket, right? Between Tosfot and Rambam. You know what I mean? Tosfot and Rambam and Rif say it's 1/3. Tosfot, it says it's 1/2. So either way, right? What, you didn't eat a half an egg? Is that what you're telling me? Try to explain to him, like how much did you have? Are you a bird? Are you from the human genus? You know what I mean? What genus are you from? So he got the point, I was trying to, get into his head, like it can't be that you ate less than a kazite. So he tells me, he says, "What? I just had a couple of bites." I said, "Yeah, well, those couple of bites are more than a kazite. Thank you very much." What do you think? What did you think? Yeah. So he wants to go according to weight. You know what I mean? So according to weight, the going measure these days, right? We say kazite is about 27 grams. You know what I mean? According to Tosfot, which is a half an egg. But that's, if you go in volume, it comes out to be a lot less. That's the thing, So which is the real one? The real one is the volume, So what does that mean? If you had the volume, the rabbis already obligated you to say Birkat Hamazon. Even though the custom is to use weight, but that's like a translation, It's according to Rambam's translation between volume and weight. Okay, good.
So how did Ashkenazim get around the whole like, oh, one piece of pizza is just a snack thing?
Yeah, we're gonna get to that. Okay, so let's go a little bit step by step, right? Baby steps, right? So let's go slowly, right? So now I tell the kid, right? Listen, you must have eaten a kazite, or either that or you're a freaking bird. One or the other, to choose which one you want. So then he realized, what I tried to tell him. Then he's trying to tell me, well, it says in the books, 27 grams. I know. I told him I know that, but that's just an estimation. It's not the real thing. You know what I mean? The real thing is the volume. So therefore, right, the rule is that if you had the volume, right, which is required, you have to, say Birkat Hamazon. You ate a kazite, according to the rabbis, right? There was also another question he asked me, which is similar to that. I'm not going to get into it. We don't need it, right? So now, right, as you said, there's also another issue, which is the Chazon Ish talks about this, and others, right? They say that, the sages, they talked about their egg, and their olive, right, which was twice as large as ours. You get the point? So, our eggs are like half the size of what they used to be in the old days, in the times of the Talmud, whatever, right? Something like that. God knows. Right? So therefore, right, some want to say, right, that because of that, the Chazon Ish, held you should like double all the measures, double them. Because it's like it used to be double. So that's why, according to the Chazon Ish, you have to eat a lot of matzah, on Passover. You have to eat double what everybody else tells you to eat. But we don't go like the Chazon Ish. The halacha is not like him. Okay? Halacha is that we go according, right? Here's the thing, right? So that's where the Rambam comes in. Because the Rambam translated volume into weight. Right? So what happens is like this, right? That he said, basically, that there's a measure in Egypt called dirham, which is, according to our measure, it's like 3 grams. Right? So therefore, right, according to that, since he used the dirham measure, right, so we can figure out everything what it is according to that. So that's why a lot of people prefer to go according to weight, whatever it is. But there's also Khatam Sofer. Khatam Sofer says that we should use the eggs and olives of our time, not the eggs in their times. Why? Because everything has shrunk, that's the way it is, that's the way the world works today, everything is smaller. So he says we have to use whatever we have today. Interesting, right? So there are different opinions here going on a little bit. You know what I mean? But right, anyway, bottom line is, right, that there's several machlokot going on here. All kinds of things. So right? That's why you get all kinds of different results, according to these things. But right, regarding the pizza issue, by the way, you know, that psak came from Moshe Feinstein, and everybody disagrees with him, so you really shouldn't rely on it. He's a lone wolf over there, Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. You know what I mean? With that 2 slices, 3 slices business, they don't agree with this, so therefore you really shouldn't rely on that. There are some, people who want to use that, there are, American guys, they say, well, the rabbi said so, yeah, well, yeah, but all the rabbis don't agree with them, so, I mean, so it's not really good idea to rely on that. So, so why is that? Because Rav Moshe Feinstein is trying to tell you, right, that pizza is a snack food, so therefore, if you eat 2 of them, you still haven't eaten enough to be a meal, but the truth is, right, that, pizza is not eaten as a snack by most people. It's eaten as a meal, lunch, dinner, right? Whatever it is, right? Pizza is not a snack. It's a meal. So therefore, since we make meals out of
The yeshiva
pizza,
boys would disagree.
I'm sorry?
The yeshiva boys would disagree.
Yeah, because they're too lazy to bench. That's why. That's not what it is,
No,
It's
I
not
mean,
because
they'll
because they
eat
disagree. They just don't know better, That's
they'll
what it
eat
is.
breakfast and then they'll have a slice of pizza and then they'll eat lunch and then they'll
Right.
have a slice of pizza.
Yeah,
and
because they want to get out easy, That's the thing, So yeah, very nice. I know people, believe me, one of the biggest dilemmas, in Judaism, by the way, is people are always avoiding Birkat Hamazon, They're trying to get out of it in every way possible. I mean, using every trick in the book to get out of Birkat Hamazon. You know what I mean? So this is like, famously known, right? And here's the thing, right? And that's why I felt, that, this guy was asking me the question. He was trying to get out of it, basically. That's what he's trying to do, you know what I mean? So I told him, I said, don't do that, I told him in the Zohar Kadosh, it says something incredible, right? It says that when you're satiated, right, and you eat, a meal, right, and you say Birkat Hamazon, that brings down blessings from Shamayim. It's a big source of blessing that other prayers cannot achieve. So I told him, I said, you shouldn't be trying to run away from Birkat Hamazon. You should be trying to always say it. It's a big mitzvah to say Birkat Hamazon. It brings down blessings to you, right? So here's the thing, right? According to Zohar Kadosh, it's also conducive, right, for shidduchim, to find your soulmate, right? Birkat Hamazon. Can you imagine? So this guy, right, he's looking to get married, and he's trying to get out of Birkat Hamazon. I told him, if you want to find the right shidduch, so say Birkat Hamazon, don't try to get out of it. Don't try to weasel out of Birkat Hamazon. This is the Yetzer Hara telling you, this thing, Yeah, try to weasel out, 1 slice, 2 slices, it was grams or, volume, or do you write big eggs, small eggs, then come on, give me a break, just, follow the rules, I mean, finish it off. I mean, that's the way it is, But the truth is, right, that Shulchan Aruch, when he talks about these issues, right, he goes according to volume, not according to weight. So therefore, the truth is, there are, those who say the custom is to go according to weight, but the Shulchan Aruch doesn't say that. It goes according to volume. So, right, basically, according to that, if you can see, right, with your vision, right, your visual prowess, that you ate half an egg, right, of some food, you have to make a blessing for that. If it's bread, you have to do Birkat Hamazon. That's the bottom line, right? If you want to play games, you can play games, get out of it, yeah, there's this leniency over there, Yeah, but come on, that's not, try to go straight ahead, don't get into these, right, loopholes, not a good idea. My humble advice. Anyway, right, let's look at the Shulchan Aruch and we're done, right? I don't want to keep you guys too long. Keep it too long. After all, we have to eat, and say Birkat Hamazon, right? You have to have dinner. Whoever didn't have yet. Okay. So, all right, there you go. So let's see Shulchan Aruch and we're done. We'll finish the chapter here. Was there any more questions about this issue? Did I answer everything, or are we lacking something?
I think we got it.
Okay, okay. Just sometimes you talk so much you forgot what the question was already. So make sure we got everything. So okay. What I want to say is like this, right? That's why I don't weigh, on Passover, the matzot and the maror, because I look at the size. I don't need to weigh it. There's no, But some people who are, go according to that right method, they bring like their, scale, right? Analog scale, right? Not electronic, right? They bring their analog scale, right? Then they measure with that the weight of the matzot, right? And they give everybody a little doggy bag, There are some households that do it this way. Right? You won't see that in my house, but there are some other places you'll see that, especially with Ashkenazim. You're gonna see with them things like this, right? They measure it out, and everything, right? So if it's a mitzvah, as we said, right, you're allowed to measure on Yom Tov and Shabbat. So that would be called a mitzvah, after all, right? You have to know how much you're eating, right? For Passover, you have to know kazait, right? This, all the sizes, right? You have to know what you're eating. I personally think it's unnecessary, but whatever, to each his own. What can I tell you? Right, so it says over here like this, right? Shulchan Aruch. Very simple. Right? Lo yimod adam seorim liten lifnei behemto. It says, don't measure the barley to give to your animal, right? Ela meshaer noten lo. So what do you do, right? According to the riff he brings, right? To just estimate, do an estimate. You know what I mean? Why have to measure it exactly? What, the animal is going to get angry at you, if you gave him too much? Don't worry, everything will be all right. The animal won't yell at you. Don't worry, he'll be all right with you. So in other words, we have no mitzvah over here, so there's no reason to measure exactly, right? What you got. There's no reason for that. So therefore, the rabbis don't allow. And that applies whether it's Shabbat or Yom Tov, right? Same rule, Okay, very good. So we're done with the chapter, I think. So Bezat Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue with the next chapter. Thanks for coming. Be blessed with wealth and health and happiness. And you guys are asking good questions over here. We're having nice discussions. I'm very happy. Very wise people. I have some wise ladies over here. I got over here. All right, very question. Each one is going to be, I think, a rabbanit or whatever, something like that. Whatever, right? So okay, good. So anyway, Bezat Hashem. We'll see you tomorrow. Laila Tov, Chazak Baruch.
Thank you.
Kabbalah
All the
Tov.
best.
Thank you.
God bless.